right, welcome back to the 1% Baseball Podcast. This is our 3 nickel episode. That's right, 15 episodes in the bag. If you haven't seen the last episode with Wes Whitehead, please check it out. It's on YouTube. Like it, share it. It's a great podcast. And just when you thought we'd done our best, we come through with another heavy
another big one.
Yeah, we got Coach Aguayo from UTSA. You guys are going to love this. We're going to talk a lot about hitting, about recruiting, about the UTSA season, about what baseball locally doing well means for clubs like yours in the region. But before we get into that, Garrett, Sean, how you doing?
We're good. We're excited.
Happy to be back.
We're excited to have Aguayo on.
This is our first nighttime podcast, and these guys have been at it since early this morning, and so I want to challenge them to get into their 2-strike approach and fucking hit some dingers in this one. So
catch you deep, one above.
There you go. So how you doing, Garrett? You good?
Doing good. Yeah, we're ready to go. Big week ahead. We're playing in 5-12 Austin, with Southwest Regional.
Southwestern, Concordia, all the schools over there, some high schools and stuff.
Yep.
So we're excited. Should be some good competition. Go out at our 16s and 17s, see some other arms, and go to work. We're excited to watch them again.
And the reason that we're doing a late night podcast is because Coach Aguayo is about to hit the road, man. He's about to go onto the recruiting trail. And so we appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And before we jump in, please introduce yourself. Give us your resume, and then we'll hop into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a resume, but I've been coaching. My name is Ryan Aguayo. I've been coaching since 2011, so 10 years now? No, 12, 10, 11. It really started out at junior college, volunteer, and I got the job at UIW in 2014, and was there 3 years prior to Coach Hallmark. And when Coach Hallmark came on staff from Rice in Missouri to become a head coach, he kept me, thank God. And then here we are. We made our move 3 years ago to UTSA. So that's a little bit of my coaching background. Originally from California, played college ball at Cal State Fullerton for a couple years. Ended up transferring to a junior college, and then finished my career playing at New Mexico State. So, and that's how I got hooked up at UIW. Was once I got done, the junior college I went to is Cuesta College in San Luis Obispo, California. I coached there. Right after I got done playing, I started coaching summer ball out there. And then 3 years later, or 2.5 years later, my coach in New Mexico State hired me to come to UIW. So that's the connection. Kind of random, but yeah. So
Tidwell?
Yeah, Tidwell.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, Garrett played for us. I didn't recruit Garrett, but Coach Tidwell did, and he was there when I first got there. First year?
No, second year.
Second year?
Tanner Wall was there.
Okay.
First year.
And then I recruited Sean to UIW, and here we are.
Nice.
Well, comes full circle.
Sorry to hear you had to deal with Sean, but I'm kidding.
We made it.
You made it. So, talk about it, I guess, before we get into the recruiting and into the hitting. Dude, talk about this year for UTSA baseball. So I think you guys, I'm a TCU guy. Everybody knows that. But you guys got a job, man. So talk about kind of how the season started. What was the mindset? What were you guys thinking when you were knocking off teams like Stanford and TCU?
Right.
And then what do you do to get those guys amped up for next year?
Yeah, well, really, I mean, this is our second season. We got here during COVID. COVID got canceled. Didn't have a full season, so we don't really count that. But last year, we needed pitching badly. This was in 2021 season. We knew that. We addressed it in the recruiting, and we felt okay. You still don't know what you're going to have in your club, though. You lose Dylan Rock, you lose Thornquist, and you lose Griff, who are really tremendous hitters. So the pitching got better, but the offense, you feel like, man, it's hard to replace those guys. So we weren't really sure what was going to happen. Come to find out, we have a better year offensively and didn't really miss a beat, and our pitching got better. So that's really the name of the game, honestly, is just pitching. And we addressed it. And, we still had our struggles on both sides of the ball and offensively at times. But when we addressed it, went into the year, we felt okay. You go through the fall, you play each other, you don't really know how good you're going to be. And you know how good the conference is. And in 2021, our conference was really, really good. Really, really good. 4 top 25 teams. All 4 of them go to a regional. we'll get into the regional after this, but so it was just a really good conference. On paper, it wasn't very good. Our record, our season, but you look back and you're like, wow, we played 4-game sets during that 2021 year.
Yeah.
Really just didn't have enough pitching to compete and match up. And so you look back and then you go into this season and you're like, you don't really know. The conference is really good. You're not really sure how you are. And then all of a sudden you look up and we win 38 games and, we're honestly should have been in a regional and fighting for, honestly, a bid. So it was a really, really good year and really disappointing at the end of it for the guys. The guys deserved it, and that's the biggest key is they deserve to win it.
Yeah.
Get into a regional.
The best part about watching y'all's season, well, the worst part is watching you guys beat TCU, right? So I'm watching that game, and, I've got everybody in their mom calling, texting me, like, you watching this? I'm like, yeah, I'm watching it, bro. I'm seeing it. But what I loved about it is like the brand of baseball you guys play. Well, let me rewind a little bit. So many folks questioned our move, and a lot of kids move to the Tribe. Why?
Right.
Garrett and Sean are a little bit too aggressive. They're a brand of baseball, blah, blah, blah. And so to see you guys making like that brand of baseball work in a major way was so exciting. And so, talk about a little bit about that philosophy and the mindset when a quote unquote UTSA goes into a big game like that. What are you guys thinking? What's the mindset? What's the process? What's happening in between innings? And then afterwards, when you get that big win, what's going on?
Yeah, well, at first it starts with Coach Hallmark, our head coach. He's really, really good. And so he creates that in us, the coaching staff, in the players. So honestly, we expect to. Certainly if you're not having a good year up to that point, you don't feel good about that game. But we had already beat Stanford. I think we had already swept Charlotte at that time. So the confidence was there. And winning, if you start winning and win big ball games, you're going to have confidence, right? But it still first starts with Coach Hallmark. That's who he is. It's where he comes from. He's aggressive. All the details matter. Every cliche you can say is true. And he brings it every single day. So, and he doesn't, and us too, the coaches and then the players, it all just trickles down. So that's where it starts. So when you go into those games, I even told the guys, we have like a little pregame meeting. I don't say much, just kind of go over maybe a little bit of scouting report with them after we do some base running. I'm like, I just felt it. And I told them during that Stanford game, I was like, if there was a team or an opportunity to win this game right now, it's you guys. And we did. So going into that TCU game, this is another ball game early. It didn't matter who it was. And in 2019, when Sean was on the team, he had a great year. We beat Texas at Missions.
I remember that.
Yeah, at Wolf Stadium. Awesome. Yeah, and then we beat A&M at
they have a team? Their team up? Oh.
So it just starts with him, and then, there's no BS at practice.
Yeah.
There's no BS in the classroom, and then we tried no BS after, off the field. So it all starts from him, and then the guys believe in it, and they believe in us as coaches, and they believe in each other.
Garrett, Sean, what did y'all see during those games that you recognized, and what did you try to pull away?
I think the biggest thing is you go back to when we beat A&M in 2019. We walk in there and it's we're incarnate. We're a small school, right? So you walk into that, and at times it can be an astronomical atmosphere, overwhelming stuff like that. So I remember vividly we go into the visitors clubhouse for our pregame meeting, and Coach Hallmark's talking to us. He's like, and someone's over there jacked around in the corner, talking about being there, whatever. He's like, y'all should expect to win this game, right? So then we go out and beat them 3 hours later, and it's that was the first taste of me where it was damn, this man means it. He means business every single time we go out there, right? And that's the biggest thing that kind of I took away from him is just the willingness to win. Right, and you carry that wherever you go. You can beat any team, right? And the same thing you mentioned Texas, right? After we beat A&M, we knew going into that game against Texas, we were going to win, right? And that's something, especially with our teams, that we've tried to do is just no matter the situation, just breed that confidence within them. They're hey, we play our brand of baseball. We jump on them early, we're taking bags and we're being over aggressive. We're gonna punch them in the mouth and keep going. right? It's just like what we talked about when we were in Houston is like regardless of what happens, like for us, like we cannot let them let off the gas, right? Especially at 13, 14 years old. Like the moment you let off the gas or you're teaching them to let off the gas, like it comes back and bites you in the ass and you give up 7 in 1 inning. Yeah. Just like what happened to us, right? So it's just that constant of like, hey, and I had a conversation with a kid today about this, is like, hey, like we only have an hour and 40 minutes. Like what is waiting around in youth baseball going to do you? You're going to look up with 20 minutes left and you're down 5, right? And time's expiring. So it's like you've got to just hit the gas early. And that was the biggest thing that he told us, right? Just be aggressive and expect to win every single game.
No, I mean, we went to the Sanford game. We got to watch most of that. I think we left in the 8th inning. Somewhere there. We didn't get to watch the whole thing. But I think just watching that, it was like, yes, like, you know, I was in there on some meetings whenever I was coaching over there and helping out. And we got to hear it all the time, right? But then that year was like, that game was like, dude, that's what they've been talking about. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to see it come to fruition. Like, it was like, and everybody always said, like, when Coach Hallmark comes in, like, I knew guys that played for him. It's like, he's going to change it. Like, it may not be that first year, but, like, it's going to change fast. And that's what the big thing is, just like Aguayo just said, was the accountability is completely different compared to everybody else. So when people say, oh, these guys are over aggressive, like, right, it's like, dude, like, at the end of the day, every detail matters. Like, if you walk out on the field under Coach Hallmark, even these coaches, like all of them, you walk onto the field and you're not, like, prepared and willing to go right then and there, they will sniff you out. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if it's the fucking trainer. It doesn't matter if it's the guy that's getting them stretched, the strength coach getting them stretched. It doesn't matter if it's the bullpen catcher. If he smells or any of them smell any whiff of just like, I don't know, meekness. We'll use meek because meek's the word. Yeah. That's the word they use all the time. But if they smell that, dude, you're getting lit up. It doesn't matter who you are. They will call you out right then and there because it all matters. Because just like we talk about all the time, if we don't have on our team all 14 guys pulling that rope, someone's holding us back. And as for them, like, dude, you can't win a ball, you can't win a season and be successful if you don't have every guy pulling the rope. Even if the guys that do this aren't going to step on the field. If he's out there and pulling somebody else away at that practice, at that pregame, at whatever, in the weight room, if he's pulling against the team, they're going to fucking cut you. They don't care. Because their job's on the line. You know
and I think the biggest thing, too, like we used to talk about it a lot as, like, players and coaches together and stuff is, like, man, like, Coach Hallmark sets a standard, right? But everyone else holds each other to that, right? And it's like every single day, like, it doesn't matter if you're hitting 300 and you're the 3-hole guy or you're the third-string second baseman, right? It doesn't matter, right? If someone shows up and it's not, like, 100%, like, locked in, ready to go, like, your ass is on the line, right? Every single day, and, like, again, like, it's cliche, but it's, like, go be a part of their program and, like, you'll find this shit out real quick, right? Like, every single day, like, your ass is on the line. It doesn't matter where you're at on the totem pole, right? And so that's, again, like you said, the accountability piece, right? But also from the player side, like, that allows you to reach, like, your true potential in heights that you never thought you would be able to. Each and every day, just forcing you to be locked in and engaged in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And so, Coach Aguayo, I guess with that being said, as you go into a season and you've got the roster you've got, the recruits you've got, and you know without a doubt, look, I don't have the A&M roster, I don't have the UT roster, LSU, whoever. You know, what sort of evaluations are you guys making, and what sort of development are you looking from your guys if they put in the work to kind of get through the season?
Well, it starts with the training, like you just mentioned, development, right? Like, you know what wins, and mostly Coach Hallmark still, to this day, like, he's been Omaha 3 times, but he's instilled in that. I've been with him for 5 years now, going on 6. Like, this was, we had a good winning season at UIW, but I still haven't been a part of that, just honestly. I haven't been to Omaha as a coach or anything like that. So it starts with the training, and as you work through your roster, as you work through your players, you know, I shouldn't even give a percentage, but you know at some capacity you're not going to just out-talent A&M or Stanford or anybody else, really, to be honest. We should not be going to Southern Miss and beating them 3 out of 5 times this season. We shouldn't, on paper, right? Yeah. But you train the right way, you focus on fundamentals, you do what wins, and you train guys to what they need. And that's where the difference is. If Johnny needs this and Adam needs this, well, we're gonna develop them for what they need, but then they're gonna go in the right direction, like he's talking about with the rope. So that's what it comes down to, is you focus on the training of this is what wins. And when you do something that alleviates from winning baseball, you're gonna be sought after and you're gonna be called out because it's not right. So we gotta be good. And you see it a lot. Not a lot, because good teams are good teams, but even the good teams, A&M, Stanford, all those teams, they start getting anxiety. They start becoming scared. And we're like, this is exactly where we want them. Because that's how coach is. That's how we are. That's how the players are. We literally try to get to a point where we're not going to scare you per se, but we're going to try to get the most out of you and find out how tough you are and find out what you're capable of.
You're going to push those limits as hard as
But that's the game. The game's going to do that to you. So and that's why you see those teams every single year that go to Omaha. Arkansas, they just set the College World Series right now. But even Coach Pierce at Texas, he comes from the same mold as Coach Hallmark. But those teams are always good because there's a standard set. They never say, oh, that's okay this year or that's okay this time. It's always the same thing. But it starts in the training. It starts in the training and development. And really, honestly, more than you can say development, but what does that player need in development? That's sometimes hard.
Well, I think the biggest thing, like, we can kind of start gearing this way, was how we train our teams is the same ways in a lot of ways that they train the guys at UTSA, right? Like he's saying, like, stick to the fundamentals. What wins baseball games? That's like the biggest thing I took away from it. Because you think college baseball, all these parents listen to all these kids, they think college baseball, they think this, like, higher level fucking thinking in the game, when in reality they probably made baseball easier than I'd ever played. You listen to how they coach and, like, the stuff that is important, what they talk about in hitting, what they talk about on the mound, what they talk about in the field. Like, you go run their camps, bat speed timing, late eye contact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Active feet, late eye contact, butt down, glove down, right? Like, it's simple shit, and that's all they do, day in and day out, and they don't make it hard. Now, can it get complex for a certain guy? Absolutely. But, like, that's what one of the biggest things I took away from them was, like, we've got to simplify the game because the game is already so hard. Like, it is a challenging game. And all these people want the answer. The answer is consistency. The same shit we talk about all the time. It's consistency with the same message. And that was the biggest thing that Hallmark always talked to us about was, like, you've got to be consistent. Because, like, when he wanted to start letting me, like, work with the pitchers more, he goes, you don't say a word that I don't clear. Like, I need to, like, really,
Amen.
because at the end of the day, if, like, I'm telling this
one
something,
message, yeah.
and Coach Hallmark and Coach Shep are telling him something else, like, that ain't working. You know what I mean? So that's something that we pride ourselves on is, like, the message is the same. Anytime that a kid comes in, like, the message is always the same.
Hey, even in the corporate world, kids and parents, you may have to have your emails read for a couple months before you send them. Like, there's one message coming out that represents the organization and affects everybody. The one thing I think that you guys had that we also had, obviously we're the kids, right? But it's like I didn't feel like you guys were ever told, "Hey, we're not even supposed to be here. Mm-hmm. Enjoy it." It was like, nah, if you fucking want to be here, this is what you got to do. Like, and it's a nuance, right? It's a potato, but that's so critical. And so talk a little bit about that mindset and how you develop that into a team like UTSA.
At some point, like, you take guys that really, it comes from their background, first of all, but you take guys that you know are going to have that competitive will. Again, they might not have talent, but they have that competitive will. So at some point, you got to get it out of them. And once that's out, it's like, well, I'm going to be the best player. So it doesn't matter. Like, again, we shouldn't be beating those teams, but we expect to. So
on paper,
exactly, yeah. On paper. But if you look at our stuff, we got some good. We do have talented guys. Sure. I'm kind of undercutting them, and I'm not trying to short them out. We do have talent, but it's the real world. It's where we are. So it's just a matter of honestly training, but you can also train the mind too.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, especially for kids. Is like, set the expectation that if you want to be good, here's how you become good, but don't don't be surprised by your
Right.
ability.
Absolutely.
Like, just
Absolutely.
look back and reflect, and then
Right.
So now I want to talk about the hitting, right?
Okay.
And I think that's one thing that UTSA did. It didn't matter if it was the first inning or if it was the ninth inning. You guys came up with some big hits. Guys never appeared to be asleep at the wheel, even in your last game. You know, you're fighting till the very end. We have a drill that we work on called the Aguayo drill, right? and it's a really big, it's a really important drill, and it's gotten kids hitting the ball. So you can start with the drill. You can start about like kind of what the mentality is at the plate, why it's so important to hit. I mean, floor is yours. You know, what is your take as a professional in developing better batting habits?
Well, number one, I think it starts from the ground up. So this but I had a coach in New Mexico State who was honestly a legend. His name was Garrett Ward, Oklahoma State back in the day. And he didn't necessarily say it's from the ground up. His was a little bit more complex. But he dove down kind of into the way the body works. And it was great for me because, honestly, I wasn't that talented. So I had to be good at the little things of hitting. And those are the little things. So it starts with the ground up, and we talk a lot about the backside. And it could be anywhere in the backside. It could be your foot. It could be your ankle bone. It could be your back knee. It could be your hip. It could be your quad area. We don't care as a staff, being hitting coaches. We just want something starts in your backside. That initiates the swing. So that's really what the Eddie drill and the Aguayo drill come from. It's that sequence of hitting. And we believe that it starts with your back leg, somewhere in your back leg. Some guys are different. Some guys feel it more in their quad. Some guys feel it more in their hip. Some guys feel it more in their feet. But it's a sequence of hitting. And it was awesome because I don't mean this in any disrespect to UIW or anything like that, but I learned that from my time in New Mexico State, and Gary Ward and all that. And then when Coach and I got together at UIW, it just clicked. Working with him, and I still remember when he first got the job, we went to Joplin, Missouri, and we were just talking about baseball, recruiting, and hitting, and I had brought up what I believe in hitting. He was like, oh, wow, like that was, we didn't know it clicked right then and there. You still got to go do it. But I still remember that. We were just talking in the hotel room, and all of a sudden it just clicked, and we believed in the same stuff. He didn't even know that. It just so happened to work out. But yeah, something in the backside. We call it backside hitting. So somewhere in that sequence.
Was your leadoff guy that little scrappy? I can't remember.
Tapia?
Was he always that good? Was he always coming up and just?
Well, he actually had a podcast too, and he said that he was always that good.
Amen. That's what
but I got numbers to prove and say that he wasn't before Coach Hallmark and I. But anyways, he's always had the skills. He's always kind of had the mindset a little bit. He needed to get more out of him because we knew there was more in there. But he's always been tough, and so it was crazy because when we first took the job 3 years ago, we just threw BP. Like, we just literally threw BP. We let the guys hit. We just watched them and evaluated them for like 2 or 3 weeks. Didn't say a word, nothing. I shouldn't say that. We did talk a little bit with certain guys. But generally, we didn't say anything. We didn't introduce backside hitting. We didn't introduce anything, no drills. And we just started talking about it. And Tapia, the next day, he just started doing it. He changed his stance. He changed his swing. Not so much the swing, but just a stance that started to initiate the backside. So, and he did it. Like, we didn't tell him to, nothing. So that kind of evolved to what he is now, and it's helped.
So what's the thought process behind that 3 weeks? Like, what are you looking for?
No confusion. We don't want confused players. We got to evaluate ourselves so that then we know how to coach them. Because if we go in there day one and we're like, all right, you're going to do this, you need this. Well, we have the numbers in front of us from the stats last year. Griff was a good hitter. Rock was a good hitter. Thorny was a good hitter. Lamb was okay. Tap was okay. So there's obviously improvements to be made. But if we go in there and just start doing this, this, and this at X, Y, Z, well, then they're not trusting us, and they'll never trust us. Because it's like, well, coach, how can you, we tell ourselves this too, like, how am I going to be able to trust you if I'm the player and you don't even really know me? One, you don't know me personally, but then second, you've never seen me day to day. All we did at that time was play UTSA 2 times during the year. We never saw them every day. So one, it's just a trust factor. But 2, we got to learn how to coach them and start to learn their body and what they need.
That may be one of the best messages that we've gotten on this podcast, because I think you have parents out there whose kids play for the tribe or whoever, who don't realize how critical those elements are of knowing your kid,
Right.
knowing the tendencies, understanding their mindset, and how that takes time. There's no organization out there. Now, look, there's special kids, right? And so I don't want to confuse. I mean, there are elite kids across all age groups, but that's such an important part. And you're talking about Division I baseball, right? And so I guess what that tells me is I should not be saying, "Hey, Bubba," when he's hitting in the game. "Hey, Bubba, don't forget." You know?
Well, I mean, every guy that comes in, we had two new kids today, and I told his mom on the phone, and I told the kid today, I said, "Hey, look, like, I'm not going to change you. We can't. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know you. I don't know how you think. I don't know how you comprehend information. Like, the biggest thing is I don't know how you comprehend failure. We talk about failure a lot in here. It's just like, you know, guys are going to suck, and, like, we've got to let them suck. Because if they don't suck, we're not going to be able to really figure out, like, why do they suck? But then there's so many guys, like, you got to be careful because, and I bet y'all have run into this, like, certain guys don't take failure well. So, like, if you start changing their swing and they start sucking, there's a downhill spiral. So you got to be careful. Like, I can't get in there and tell one kid something and then tell another kid. Like, I can't, like, Jet and Sanchez are the 2 in my head that I think about. Because I can, like, Sanchez is a little bit different with me than he is with Sean, but, like, I can tell Jet whatever I want.
Yeah.
But the moment I tell Sanchez something, like, I have to be careful because it'll ruin his day. It'll, like, he'll get on the machine and I'll say one thing and just like.
Well, I think the next piece too, though, is like you got to understand too, like especially with us using blast, right, and just seeing hitting and stuff as a whole, is like the kid may take a really good swing off the tee or front toss, right, or even off of an arm, right, and then you put him on the machine or 2 machine BPs, more competitive stuff, and it goes to shit. And it's not always like that. Sometimes it's the other way around, where the kid doesn't look good. Then you put him in a competitive setting, and like something turns on, and he goes to work. So it's like, hey, like, yeah, exactly, right. So it's like, okay, like maybe we don't need to mess with him as much as we think, right? And the next thing too is like we got to be able to meet kids where they're at, right? Some kids don't need me breaking down the swing from a biomechanic standpoint. Is where some dudes want that. You know what I mean? Like there's a 12-year-old that comes on Wednesdays out to Spring Branch, and this dude like wants more information than like I can possibly give him.
And he can the thing is always he can execute it.
Yeah,
like he can talk about it for 15 minutes about some whatever. Right? We can get him whatever posture, backside, front leg block, like whatever we want to talk about here. Like saying inside and through the baseball, like you can get so deep into this shit, and this kid will comprehend it, and literally the next swing is like.
Yeah, like 3 weeks ago, we're over there talking about like pelvic rotation and like staying posture, like spine angle and shit. And then like 10 swings later, he's like perfectly executing it, right? And then there's some 16-year-olds, Parker Brown, if you're listening, he doesn't want to hear that. He just wants me to say, is it working in game? Cool, is it going to help me hit and get recruited? All right, then we'll do it.
You say, get into your legs. I have legs.
So it's like being able to just really, just all the stuff we've been talking about, just understand guys like, this sounds stupid, but like, does he want to hear more, right? Some guys just need vanilla. They don't need cookies and cream and then some. So just being able to meet them where they're at.
I mean, for y'all too, I mean, we talk a lot about the guys, to our guys, especially the older dudes, like, you got to hit. You got to hit more. Like, that's just what it is. Like,
absolutely. For sure.
And the thing that y'all always said too that I loved was, like, just what we kind of talked about is some guys don't need as much. We got to let guys be them, especially at that level. It's a little bit different where we're at because those guys need to be groomed a little bit more. Obviously, whether y'all walked into the first year with UTSA or not, like, those are still Division I baseball players. So they're there for some reason, even though some may not be higher on the total pool than others. But y'all always let guys be who they were. You didn't really change them. And so I think that's something for us too that we take is we try not to really change guys. Like, we try to use the environment and the training that we do to actually build them into better baseball players and let them figure it out.
Right.
Now, there's got to be some degree of, like, we've got to step in if a guy's really sucking, which y'all do. Y'all do that. Like, there's been guys out there, they go through a stretch of shit, and I think we were on the phone this year. I can't remember exactly who we were talking about, but they'll say just started working with him a little bit more and started to come back. You know what I mean? Started to find his groove again. So for y'all, like, what I know you preach a lot about early work. I know Thorny didn't do a lot of early work, but for y'all, I mean, like, what do y'all do? Like, what in terms, like, it doesn't have to be everything, but like, what is the stuff? Like, if you're trying to get a kid at 14 to 16, 13 to 17 to be a better hitter and to keep it simple, because we already talked about backside hitting, but like just like day-to-day stuff, like what does a kid got to do to be a better baseball player in terms of hitting? Tough question.
No, number one, you got to hit. You already said that. Like, yeah, we joke. Ryan Flores is a perfect example of a guy who didn't like to hit all that much, to be honest. But he's hitting, you look up on the season, not this season, at UIW, he's hitting like 330 with 12 homers. And it's like that guy hit maybe once a week. But you develop that trust with the kids. So, but you still need to hit. So there's some guys, perfect example, Thorny, Ryan Flores, there's some guys out there. But it's hard. Hitting is hard. And for me, I always felt like if I could just tackle down like the fundamentals, well, what are the fundamentals? I know that's next, but then I'm going to be okay. I believe in myself. I always felt that way. If I put in the work, there's nothing else but what is he going to throw me? Am I going to swing at strikes? Am I swing at take balls? That's the biggest thing. If I can go hit in the cage, for me, and it's still what I try and tell guys now, you've done all the work. Trust the training. When you go to the field, on the field for live ABs, it's just training. It's just swinging at strikes and taking balls. But I think we all kind of know each other, but I think every day has to be some type of Eddie drill or Aguayo drill or something like that. I personally love one-arm drills because I think if you can really, the hardest thing to fix in my mind is the lower half. Some guys are stiff, some guys are too wide, some guys are too loose, like they can't control their balance. So once you kind of tackle that down, which is why I think you should do it sometime every day, then you do one-arm drills. Because to me, the one-arm drills are repetition. Like if your legs are there and they're working, your hands will get there. And I think sometimes a lot of guys focus on, if you're not talking about backside hitting, which I know you guys are, some people get too handsy. Eddie drill, Aguayo drill, one-arm drills, I've always loved that. The other thing we do a lot till this day, even with our guys, is heavy bats. Yep. Heavy bats, and it doesn't have to be pretty. Well, we tell our guys, if you can hit a line drive that goes over, one hops the infield dirt or goes over it on a line, that's what you're succeeding at. That's high exit velocity with a heavy bat. Yep. So some type of lower half, like we do tap drill too, yep, where it gets guys to stay back. All those things, you just got to find what works for that guy. But some type of lower half work every day, even one arms too, and swinging the heavy bat and the underload bat. Yep. So we swing the underload bat we swing the heavy bat a little bit more, but when we go through the course of the season, it actually becomes a little bit more individual. You guys get tired. Some hitters get tired. They're not as strong, just strength-wise. So you don't really you want to try and create a little bit more of an underload feeling so their hands are whipping through the zone. But does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. Well, so to take it a step further without giving away the secret sauce, is it for a kid, in the summer, right? Maybe 17 going to 18, junior going to senior in college, or even 12 going to 13. Is it every day for them? Is it three? Is it three times? And I know it's different for everybody, but
for sure,
if you had to recommend, an amount of time.
I think it should be, if I had to just put a number on it, yeah, I'd say 5 days a week. 5 days a week. 5 days a week you should be hitting. And again, it's not for everybody though. And there is some balance. Like, maybe let's just say, in the summers, most teams play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? I'd be hitting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, a little bit Thursday, and if I had the opportunity, maybe a little bit Friday. That's where I'd be. But Monday, Tuesday would be a really super, like, I'm getting after it.
And I think
Hold on. When we talk, though, too, like, if you're listening to this podcast and you just heard him say it depends on the guy, the guy that he's talking about that doesn't have to hit every day is fucking legit.
Yeah. right. No doubt.
There might not be a single person on this pod, like, listening to this right now that their kid or the kid is that guy that doesn't have to hit. Like, well, man, like, at this level, too, though, like, we see so many dudes that, like, don't hit, and then they complain when they don't hit in game. It's like, brother, like, what you do all week?
Yeah, I mean, our shortstop, one of them, he's a freshman this year, had a solid year. He could be a lot better, but he's a guy that we didn't mess with him a ton this year. Again, he had a great high school season offensively, and he came in the door, and we were like, if we start messing with him now, he's not going to trust us. So we kind of let him alone. He had an okay fall and kind of an okay spring. And we told him this summer, like, he's playing summer ball in California, and he needs to go be his own coach. He's got information from us. He's going to go gather new information from other people. Like, I think a lot of times we get credit or not enough credit or whatever. The coaches get too much put on us, and it's really the kids doing the work. But he's got to go figure it out with the information, good information provided.
Yeah.
But he's a guy, to your point, like, I felt, this is me personally, I've actually never said this to coach or even him, but he needed to hit more. He needed just to hit more. Just find it. Go find it. But there's a balance. Like, he's playing short every day. He's honestly, he's never played this much in his life. Like, there is that balance. But he needed to hit more. And we have a lot of guys like that too. Yeah.
I think that's an interesting point. There's a big time piece that you just brought up about being your own coach. Because we talk a lot about it of, like, we want to be able to groom guys to where it's like, we're giving them the information and they take it and run with it.
Yeah.
Right? To where I can have a relationship with a guy where he comes back in after a week and I'm like, all right, like, how'd you hit?
Right.
Right? And he can give me more than just like, oh, it's fine. Just be able to break it down like, okay, my at-bats were shit because XYZ and I took fastballs, or like I was solid because I was getting my timing on deck and in the dugout. Right? So being able to do that, but also like letting them like take the lead to a certain degree, right? Because even like you said, like if a guy's struggling, like you want them to come to you or want them to come to us, right? Because we've had some kids, even on our younger teams, where it's like they did some stuff. We didn't really know them coming into the spring when we first brought out that team on, but it's like we knew they were struggling, but it's like you don't want to go to them because you want them to make the change.
Absolutely.
Right? So, like, then they come to us in the offseason. They're like, okay, what do I need to do? Right? The moment he does that, that's when it's like, okay, like, the kid's ready to go to work. Right? And in 4 or 5 weeks, like, we've already seen, like, some improvements that are, like, they're big time, like, consistent.
And I think the takeaway for parents, and we always try to get the parent perspective brought into this, is remember, guys, a lot of us are paying money for our kids to play ball. There's no reason why that kid shouldn't earn it by hitting an hour a day or doing something baseball related. And look, if that's not your philosophy, fine. But for me, if my son had no interest, and I'm not saying he's a star or anything, far from it, right? But if he had no interest, we'll play Little League, which is fine, and we'll do the Y, and you can just do something and then go play. But if you're going to do something that I'm paying for, right, if there's a cost involved, there's a lesson, in my opinion, that the kid has to learn. And there's nothing wrong with learning accountability, right, in your work. There's nothing wrong with earning kind of what the parent is giving. And sometimes I think we let them off the hook, and nothing wrong with working. It's like mowing. To me, it's like mowing a lawn. Right. You want to earn it? Go hit a bucket.
Right. Well, you'd be surprised too, like the kids that hit the most, like how much they find out about themselves. And just like you said, the more you hit, the more you become your own best coach. It's like, okay, well, if I do this with my backside or do this with my hands, like I can get to this pitch better, or whatever it is, right? So then now, because like, again, like I was saying earlier, like we want to groom guys to where if I'm standing in the third base coaching box, like, he's not looking at me to make an adjustment. Like, the kid knows he's fucking late. Like, make the adjustment to be early. Like, don't just keep being late and underneath the baseball, right? Like, so being able to put guys in that situation where they have the information to know so that they can make those adjustments on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's drills you can put them through. There's competitive things that you can do to put them through. And it's like, okay, go figure it out. That's what the heavy bat does for us a lot is just, it's like, well, I'm underneath the ball so much. Well, it might be your backside. It might be your top hand. So that's another way. Like, we don't just say, here's a drill, go do it. Like, no, here's the goal, go accomplish it, try and figure it out. Because then you're going to start feeling your body, what it's doing. Am I late? Am I early? Am I underneath it? Like, all those types of things. So, I mean, sure, we give a lot of information, but at the end of the day, we try to let them go figure it out.
Two pieces. One that I have is, like, for us, biggest thing that we probably struggle with is, and you have a lot of probably experience with this in ways to give feedback. We used to, like, from top to bottom, like, the consistency of being on time, right? And we try to challenge it every single day from a compressed velo standpoint, from two machine BP standpoint, two plate drills, two plate breakers, right? All the stuff that we did when we were the all. But, you know, like, what is it, like, what do you do to a kid that can't be on time? Like, how do you make those adjustments?
That's a tough one because that's the hardest one to get.
How do you find it? Like, if you, even just a base standpoint, like, if you want to get a guy to be on time more, what would you give feedback to find that consistency?
Honestly, like, it's hard without watching, obviously, but I'd say the first thing is, like, being on time for the fastball. And again, like you said, compressed velo, at some point you just got to find it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, at some point, like, but that's the first initial starting point, I'd say, because most everyone's going to throw fastballs. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it's tough because you just got to watch them and you got to see. There, you know, a lot of hitters are like, oh, get your front foot down. That's kind of old school now, and it's not even here anymore. But that is partially true. Like, some guys may just be getting their foot down late. We would say it more, their load is late. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we talk about more being slow and early.
Yeah.
Like, start slow, or start early and slow, and then you control it. You control when your foot's getting down. You control when your backside's getting down. But from just a general timing perspective, it's hard to pinpoint, like, one thing of saying, all right, go be on time for the fastball. Well, okay, within that, where's my load? Where's my backside going?
Yeah.
Like, initiating it, because sometimes, you know, you may hit line drives to center or right field or pop up in the cage, and it's like, it's my hands. Well, it actually might be your backside.
Yeah.
Your backside might be late. It's just not getting through the ball. Exactly. So that's where we would start, is the load first.
And then the next one, before we jump to the next, is like, we struggled a lot this year with just, like, play discipline, right? We gave our guys homework. We gave, like, literally every dude on our 14 team, like, our MO was, we took strikes for strikes and we swung at balls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the complete opposite thing that you want to fucking do as a hitter, right? So, like, we gave them homework of, like, hey, we want you doing, like, 1 to 7 call-outs on front toss. Like, you don't even have to hit with the balls 1 to 7 call-outs. Like, we want you doing this. We want you doing this. Like, for plate discipline, you know, when I threw BP, when I was at practice every day, like, 2 to 6, 2 to 6, 2 to 6, 2 to 6, 2 to 6. Like, what you're giving parents, like, hey, parents, you know, one of the biggest things is being disciplined at what you're swinging at, right? Obviously, we talked about it last week. Some umpires have bigger zones. So what, right? We want to train hitters to be in the zone and swing at pitches in the zone. Like, what are other things that you would get parents to do outside of that and kids to do, like, in terms of plate discipline? Like, how do you build that? What do you do to build that?
Yeah, well, like, just to kind of go off of that, like, I think we're talking about backside hitting in sequence. That's the number one thing. So if you're a parent out there, like, if your kid has any skill at all, which most kids, I shouldn't say most, but most kids do that are playing competitive baseball. They do have some skill. So then it's like, well, why aren't I hitting? Well, we talk a lot about it. Swinging strikes, take balls. So I know your question is geared toward how to do it, but that's the key, is not chasing. So people listening out there, like, if you can, we talk the same thing, 1 to 7, 8, 0, all that stuff. And we really try hard to swing at 2 to 6. That's it. And sometimes it's frustrating when Chase King doesn't swing at 7.5, and it's actually a ball, but the umpire's been calling it, and he doesn't swing. And it's like, dude, you need to swing. Like, but he's so disciplined, and that's how much we've trained our guys is staying 2 to 6. Now, how do you do it? It's literally like, we'll tell guys sometimes, like, you know, it might be whatever round, just randomly. Like, that's 8. You're hunting 2 to 6. That's on 8. Why? You know why? Sometimes we'll be like, go run. Like, get out of here. You're not locked in. You're not focused. Like, and then you get them back to locked in. And we tell them all the time, though, like, throwing BP or whatever, if it's on 1 or 7 during BP training or whatever, it's okay. Take it, right? You've been there. Like, take 1 and 7. But it's the constant hounding on them to stay. Like, you might get annoyed with me. I don't care. But if you swing a 2 to 6, you're going to have some success. Well, and the height's got to be right? Yeah. But if you swing 2 to 6 until 2 strikes, until the umpire's giving ball 8, you will have some success. But we tell our guys all the time, like, if you swing at 1, you're not hitting right. You're not hitting right. Like, you're not hitting correctly, because if you're hitting 1 really, really hard all the time, you're not hitting 5, 6, 7 hard all the time.
Chasing breakers.
Right, dude, you're chasing breakers.
It was so much fun to watch, because, like, we would come we started coming up to throw BP this year. Like, it was so refreshing just to see fastballs getting fucking hammered. Like, it was so nice to, like, dude, because we talked about it. It's like, dude, they don't miss. Right. Like, they miss.
Misses are good, though.
Exactly.
Right.
They'll be pissed. You see a guy, like, you throw a ball like 2 or 3 is over the plate. They should hit it over the fence, and they get, like, jam shotted because it got on their hands. They're pissed, but I'm looking at this, and it's, like, flying past my head into the gap, and it's like, man, I miss watching this. Like, just because, like, again, it's a play discipline, though. Right. Because, yeah, you're looking 2 to 6, but if you're on time 2 to 6, it doesn't matter if it's 2 or 6. Like, you're going to be on time and get a barrel there. Right. And I think that's just one of the things that, like, we've got to be better at. And I think parents, like, the biggest thing is, like, if you do know the 1 to 7 system and you understand that and your kid understands it, like, you should be doing it every day. Like, I told him, and it's something that I'm making a point now, that especially the guys that are on our team, more specifically to them, like, I am making sure in our lessons and in our training, like, we are doing some sort of, like, discipline, balls in and out of the zone, because you'd be surprised. And I think that's the biggest fault that we had is, like, I was even watching it with the 16 sit on Friday. Like, I'm tossing balls on purpose. I didn't say anything yet. I'm tossing balls to dudes, like, above the letters. I'm tossing balls on, like, 7 and down. I'm tossing balls that are not going to get hit, and they just keep swinging. They keep failing. Yeah. Like, dude, we got to fucking train this. Mm-hmm. Like, that's on us. Like, that's on us. Like, if that kid's doing that, that's my fault. Right. That's his fault. Right. And that's at the end of the day, like, if we do that in game, like, we're not going to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Let's go down this rabbit hole. So all the stuff we've been talking about, let's dive into approach, because I think that's a big piece, right, in terms of swinging at strikes, laying off balls, right? If a kid has the right approach, and again, there's a million different factors that can go into it, right? And we don't have all the resources of being able to sit on an 0-0 slider with guys on second and third, one out, sure. Right? But, like, having an approach, especially the right approach for a kid, and sometimes it takes a while to find that. Mm-hmm. But having that right approach puts them in a position, because I talk a lot about that, right? Like, we've got to put guys in a position to where their swing can get off, mm-hmm. right? And again, absolutely. It's very, very hard if we're swinging at 8 and up every single at bat, right? So what would you kind of say, just fundamental approach stuff, right, for 13, 14, 15-year-old without having, like, any prior information on a guy other than just, like, he's got a little bit on the fastball and just seeing some pitches and warm-ups?
I mean, honestly, like, it sounds simple, and I'm going to say it again, but, like, I'd say this is against really, really good pitching for most of the year. Like, there's certain guys where our approach would be, okay, we have to get to the fastball. We have to stay on top of the fastball. And then there's some guys who are like, they're going to throw breakers 80% of the time, so hunt the breaker. But a lot of the times our general approach was have bat speed 2 to 6. And really, what does that mean? Like, you're staying in the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. That's what it means. Like, you're not trying to pull off. You're not trying to go oppo. You're trying to get your A swing on something 2 to 6. And what happens sometimes, most of the time, is, like, you might be a little late on the fastball. And it's going to go slightly to the right to the right of the second base, right at the second baseman. Sometimes if you're right-handed, and you might pull the breaker, but that's really, I mean, we kind of just went over it, but that's the basic approach.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, it's hard to do though. It really is, like, but that's the goal. Like, we have a chart where it's called a play. Well, damn it, I forget it now. PRPD. What's our chart? Pitch recognition. Yeah. Oh, PRPD. PR. No, we changed it. That's why. PRSD chart. It's pitch recognition swing decision chart. So, how many strikes we swung at, how many balls we swung at, how many balls we took, how many balls we swung at, right? So, anyways, that's our chart, and we'll track it. At the end of the year, it's got everybody, like, somebody might be like 0.5 balls swung at. Well, that's not good. That means half of your bats you're swinging at balls, or your at-bats you're swinging at balls half the time.
Yeah.
So, but to simplify somebody who's, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, even high school, like, even at our level, like 2 to 6, and not everybody talks 2 to 6, but really that's the whole goal.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be like, yeah, there's going to be guys who are throwing firm. Well, and he's going to throw a lot of fastballs. Well, get to the fastball.
And I think that's what we see a lot of the faults of is, like, you'll be sitting there watching guys hit, and it's like, man, like, this shit shouldn't beat you.
Well, the worst for me is the indecision, right? Like, that's if you, this bugs me to this day sometimes. We don't have a lot of guys that do this, but, like, it might be first pitch. You get fastball, you're coaching the box, right? So you can't tell if it's right down the middle. But it sure as hell looks right down the middle, right? So
you see him on
you're like, I
would
would
you go back and watch that on game,
right?
Film,
so
like,
you're sitting there coaching first or third, and you're like, man, you just took that right down the middle with a runner on second and nobody out. Like, let's be aggressive there. And then the next pitch is a breaker for a strike, and it's up, and you're sitting there like,
that's another good one.
Well, you're not locked in. Like, that's what it comes down to, is that literal focus of, I'm going to be 2 to 6, and I'm getting my ace swing best bat speed off. And if you honestly can do that, which is not easy, you're going to have some success if you got some skills, if you got some other stuff. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I think that's the way to simplify it. Yeah, aggressive. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, we tell our guys, like, you're going to chase. You're going to chase. But if you can be locked into this, you will take balls more often than your chase.
Well, I think it also, like,
it gives them a confidence, too.
Well, that too, and also, like, you'll see them in game, and it's like they come back to the dugout. They're like, "Damn, I got to a ball I never thought I could." Right? Because I'm sitting 2 to 6, trying to barrel something through the middle, through right center. Now when he hangs the breaker up, like, I'm a little out in front, but I barrel that thing in the left field corner for a double.
Right. And I think the other thing too is you watch games, and obviously I don't think you have video, per se, like, unless you're doing a lesson or in training. But for us, like, we encourage our guys to take 1 and 7 so much that, like, if you got Hurston Waldrop, who's a pitcher for Southern Miss, and he's 94 to 98 with a hammer and a changeup, and they take 2, like Ian Bailey, this happened to him all the time. This happened in the conference tournament. Waldrop goes 0-2, 2 sliders right on 7, probably even 8, to be honest, with a guy on first base. Late in the game was so close at the time. And
this one hit the ball.
No, it was earlier, but he literally goes slider, 0-2, both 7, probably 8, right? And we didn't say nothing. And we just told him, like, keep working. Like, now you got to go 2-strike approach.
Yeah.
But now you got to battle. And there's no anxiety with him. There's no, like, damn, there's nothing from us. We've trained this so much. There's nothing from us as coaches saying, damn, you should have hit that, or the body language is bad. Like, there's nothing from us. And I think that's where guys are like, they know us, they know your training, they can trust your training, and they laid off 1 and 7. And in this case, he battled back, he fouled a couple balls off, and he drove a walk. And that's just as important than barreling up a ball.
And see, to add on to that too, one thing that, like, I loved about playing for y'all and just, like, talking more hitting and stuff is, like, the freedom within that approach too.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple, it's clear, but yet there's freedom in it, right? Because too many times, like, we'll have a kid come in and he's like, okay, like, well, what's your approach? Like, well, I'm sitting 3 to 5. It's like, okay, well, then why did you take that fastball? Because it was on ball 6. I'm like, well, in reality, like, you're just making up excuses at this point, right? Like, there's really not a difference. Now, if it was like 6 or 7, like, okay, and the guy's got a little bit more on the fastball, like, I can understand that. But it's like finding an approach that, like, there's still room for error. Like Wes talked last week on the podcast of, like, being able to still have that margin of error where you're giving yourself a goal to go for, but still having the freedom within that goal.
Right,
exactly.
And so, I think that's all great stuff. If you want to know some more about hitting an approach, we'll send you Coach Aguayo's cash app. And you can get that one-on-one
hour session.
But we've got about 10 minutes left, and I really want to touch on the recruiting piece because I think at the end of the day, all parents may have a little bit of a
for sure
of a dream or a want for their kid. Their kid probably also has it. I'd love to play college ball. So as you're about to hit the recruiting trail, you know, not who are you going to see specifically, but what kind of kids are you going to see? What kind of conversations are you having? And how competitive is it at that probably whatever that percentage is, 1% of kids that get to play D1 ball? So,
yeah. I mean, number one, we look and hunt for pitchers, good arms. That is number one. Aside from that, we try and hunt the middle of the field, and that's catcher, shortstop, you know, a little bit of second base, depending if he's left-handed, right-handed, if he can run, he's got some pop. But really just hunt that middle of the field, and it starts on the mound. That's recruiting like 101. From there on, you kind of go from there with what you're looking for. But number one, I don't hate to say it, but it's just the truth. You need tools. You need tools, and that's the ability to hit, power, arm, run, and defense. Those are the 5 tools that we factor in baseball. We're not usually getting guys with 5 tools. You try to get 1 or 2 or 3 and develop the others and get them in your program. So starts on the mound, middle of the field, and you got to have tools. Now, I'd be a liar to say, like, you know, we're not going to – we've gotten to our program now where it's like sometimes we need to take that guy that has a lot of tools. You know, he may be – we don't love the guy with bad grades, to be honest. We love the guy with good grades more often than not. We're not a super academic program at UTSA or university, not like UIW was. But we like the guys with good grades. But I'm not a liar and say if a guy's got a 2.5 and he throws 92, we're not going to take it.
You know why? Because 92 of the breaker play.
Yeah, so it is what it is, right? But all those other boxes got to check. So it just starts checking boxes. What are those boxes? Tools, number one, academics, you know, a little bit of parents and competitiveness. But the parents factor is more like where he comes from. You know, not so much like what your parents do for work or anything like that, or what city or nothing like that. It's really like, okay, is the competitive will there? How he's raised? Is that going to be in his nature? If not, if you got 2 kids who are similar or even slightly below the other kid, but he's super high-willed and super competitive, guess who we're going to take? We're going to take that guy who's competitive.
And I think to provide some context, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I mean, that's across economic spectrum, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's all sort of an internal want, drive type deal that it doesn't, you can't put a price on.
Definitely. And the one thing, just to kind of go piggyback off the middle of the field and you know where everybody kind of focuses, it also depends on your needs that given that year. You know, for instance, in this 23 class, or I'm sorry, in this incoming class, which is the 22 class, we're bringing everybody back this year. So we're trying to get some more arms this year to come in, but we only have about 4 arms coming in. So it wasn't a huge, we like our pitchers. We think they're solid. We think they're going to get better. So it wasn't a huge class of pitchers. We got 4 of them. We think they're all good, 4 or 5, and we're still going. So
what would you say from like the player standpoint? Like a kid, 16, 17-year-olds want to get recruited. What would you say they should be doing in terms of like, is there anything that sticks out if you watch a kid that's like, damn, like, that's solid?
Number one, honestly, it sounds funny. I think you guys follow Next Level Baseball, that guy out in Florida and stuff, and he puts a lot of truth out there. Some of it's exaggerated, but I've seen this, and he still does it to this day. But he tells guys, if you want to be recruited, your body is your resume. That's not always the case because some guys just haven't developed yet, maturity-wise. But especially for position players, like looking strong and being strong, that matters. Like it really, really does. Like, and it depends where you're at, where your needs are. If you can afford to take a guy and get him in your program for a year and develop him strength-wise and all that, then okay. But for position guys, you got to be strong. You got to be strong. You got to have bat speed, and you got to try and create that bat speed. And that comes from strength in the weight room. So the one thing is the weight room. Number two, it's hard to tell this in summer ball, but this becomes relationship stuff. Is what's their routine? What do they like to do? Where do they train? Maybe kids from Houston, they go to DST or something. Maybe they're here in town, they go to DST or U or whatever. It just all varies. But your body's huge and how it represents you. Like you get kids all the time walking up to you and around Tom Ball, Premier, they just walk right past you. You're like, man, that guy weighs 160 pounds. And he's about to be a senior in high school. Like seriously, it's like, well, how much does he really love the weight room? Could it be his family? You look at his dad or dad or family, whatever, and well, his dad's 6'2" and he's 220 pounds. Okay, well, you got a shot. But if you're, does that make sense?
Yeah. So, and I think there's still the outlier exists, right?
Everybody's different. Yeah. It's hard to say.
But you're not recruiting. It's tough to find that diamond in the rough, and when you find them, you're probably so over the moon to have them. You almost want to keep them a secret, right? Because you don't want it to blow up. A question I'd like to ask, and we've heard it before. Hallmark talked about it, and we've had other coaches that we know talk about it. But has a parent ever talked to you guys out of recruiting their kid?
Out of?
And I don't mean like outright talked you out of it, but just you're like,
for sure.
Holy, I'm gonna have
for sure. I don't want to deal with it. Yeah. No, for sure. It's actually a kid. I'm not gonna say his name. Obviously, we didn't. He's not. He's still in high school now. I was recruiting him last year, and he had jumped teams. So when I saw him playing for one team, he was with them. I contacted their coach, and at that time, he's got to call me just based on NCAA rules. So the next time I talked to the coach, I was like, "Hey, can you have so and so call me?" And that's how it works, just age wise. And he's like, "Well, he's not with us anymore." I was like, "What happened?" And he said, "Well, he's going to go here because mom and dad think that he's going to get more opportunity." And then I ended up calling the kid one more time, just kind of checking in on him. And he was like, I just didn't like it. I thought, there's going to be other opportunity. My mom and dad, mostly dad, we just thought this would be a better fit. And I had been on a conversation, one phone call with his parents, and they were asking me more questions than the kid was. And I was like, well, who am I recruiting here?
Yeah.
And at that point, so there just becomes these red flags. Like, well, dad's trying to control it. Kid jumps team, blah, blah, blah. And nowadays, that's a transfer portal kid waiting to happen.
Dude, I mean, we should fucking talk about that. We talk about that so much. Like, I wish there was a freaking, it stayed with you. Like, literally, like, every time that you flipped a select ball team, like, it showed up on your damn resume because it's true, man. Like, these kids and these parents are bailing people out. Like, they're bailing these kids out, and they're setting them up. And we said it before. That's exactly why I think it was the first podcast we ever had. That's why the transfer portal is such a big thing now, is because all select baseball is like me instead of helping.
Well, again, you go back to what we said like 30 minutes ago, right? You don't, especially younger kids, like you don't, accountability, but you don't let them fail. Now when they get to college baseball because they got some talent and they get punched in the mouth, you see this shit all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right, a super talented kid goes to a really good school, gets punched in the mouth and doesn't play, hops in the portal, and transfers because shit doesn't go his way.
Mm-hmm. So that's it doesn't happen a lot because honestly, you kind of see those red flags. At least you hope to, throughout the recruiting process. I mean, I'm talking to kids, I'm talking to parents, and mostly it's about scholarship offer if we ever get to that point. But again, like when you start talking to the parents and more than the kid himself, then it's like, well, what am I doing here? That's going to be a problem waiting to happen.
And that's probably something that we can all work on as parents, is just empowering the kid a little bit. I mean, that's all part of development, and whether it's in baseball or any other walk of life, you got to grow up sometime.
Absolutely.
And so anyway, we got just a couple minutes left, and before we wrap up with Garrett and Sean, is there a piece of advice or some philosophy you'd like to share with folks listening, and if somebody has the dream of playing at UTSA, like what should they be working on if they want to one day be a road runner?
I mean, play a lot of baseball. Really, it sounds ridiculous, honestly, but play a lot of baseball. It's the only way you're going to get better. We send guys every year, like guys come in our program, they go play summer ball for 2 months. They go play summer ball for 2 months every single year. Like, we encourage guys to play, and if you do that, one, it shows you love the competition. If you just want to play, like, there's some training that obviously you need to train too, but if there's an opportunity to go play baseball, go play baseball. That's the only way you're going to enhance your skills on the field. Like we were talking about earlier, some guys are different. Some guys need a little bit more training first. Other guys are better in game, and they suck in training. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, go play baseball. As far as UTSA, I mean, it's hard with us because of scholarship and scholarship restrictions and 11.7 dealing with that. But there's a place out there for you. There's a place. If you like to compete, you got some skill, you got good grades, because those grades matter. Never, ever forget the grades. Again, we love kids that have good grades, mostly because it speaks to a little bit of their character. At UIW, which is where we were prior to this, you needed the grades because you needed to get academic money. And if you didn't get academic money, you're going to pay a lot of money. So, but even to this day, we love kids that have at least a 3.0. Not saying we won't take anybody less than that. But we like those kids that, there's accountability. If you just go to class and do your work, it means you're accountable to some level and some degree. So schools, number one, take care of business in the classroom, play a lot of baseball, and train hard. That's really it.
And then we've had a couple of folks on, over the first 15 of these, and I think everybody that we've had on, we'd love to be a recurring guest at some point. And, maybe we'll visit with you when you get back from the recruiting trail.
Yeah.
But we thank you.
Yep.
Garrett, Sean, you got any parting words?
Yeah. Number one, appreciate him for everything that he's done for us, and
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you for everything that you put me and Sean through, and thank you for the information, and thank you for just the constant coaching on us, because we need it, and we appreciate the relationship.
Thanks for the guidance and taking a shot on me 6 years ago, whenever it was, and look at us now.
Look at us now. We're here.
Changing lives.
We are doing a
we got a Phoenix BB Core bat, drop 3. It's a great bat. Phoenix has been good to us.
Yep.
You get a discount on their site if you use the promo
South
code.
Texas Tribe,
South
25,
Texas Tribe.
capital S, capital T. Yep.
Yeah. And so we'll get the information out about that, but we will be giving that away. It'll be surrounded around liking, sharing, and that good stuff. But to these guys, thank you. Thank you to Andy for keeping the office open till almost 11 o'clock p.m. We do this because you guys are asking for it, and because these guys love to do it. So we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.